For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Welcome, everybody, to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and I'm coming back at you live from Waco, Texas. And we have another very special guest with us here this morning. We have Aurelia. You're from Tennessee. Let's have you introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on here. I actually was born and raised in Paris and moved to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue music when I was about 17, and then started to form a band called Aurelia and recorded and released a new album this past December, and just been trying to play some gigs and have a good time.
Gotcha. And you're currently based out of Nashville, or technically Murfreesboro, I think, or are you just straight in Nashville?
Just straight in Nashville, but I do play gigs in Murfreesboro a lot.
Okay. And since Nashville is kind of been in the news lately, how's everything going there after the tornado? Were you affected by it, or?
Luckily it passed us. It was north of us, but a lot of people were affected, and we're trying to help as much as we can, and the community has just been absolutely incredible with helping each other out and trying to find different ways to make sure that everything is safe.
Awesome. Yeah, we when I heard the news, we started figuring out a way that my team and I could help, and without being there. So we decided to release a compilation album with musicians that we've worked with that are currently in Nashville. They may not necessarily be from Nashville, but they currently live there.
Cool. Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I wasn't quite sure how well it would go over. I wasn't sure if we'd raise thousands of dollars or $10. But right now we're sitting at about $200, so I'm like I'm happy with it.
Yeah, honestly, and every bit counts. It's just the fact that you tried to help, even from where you're at, is absolutely amazing. And I know people are going to be very thankful for that. So yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, and it's going to be in the news cycle for a while because it was a pretty big tornado that came through. So it's going to be on top of everybody's minds for a while. So we're definitely not giving up or anything.
Yeah, no, it definitely, we're so grateful that we didn't get hit with the worst where we were at. And, it's just, I visited some friends that, had their power out, but they weren't, their house was fine, but just driving to where they were living and just seeing, how it has affected others. It's just, it's incredible. I still can't believe that it's actually happened. And so just seeing the Nashville community just going out and trying to help and helping and just being incredibly supportive of each other has just been it's been amazing just to see everyone get together and help each other out.
Yeah, that's for sure. I go back to the morning after it happened. I was just kind of looking online to see, because for me, I'm very interested in tornadoes. Like, one of my things as a kid when I was growing up was I wanted to study tornadoes.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I saw that, in my head, I was looking for like all the data about the tornado and So I was looking through YouTube and I saw this newscast of, I think it was News Channel 5 in
Mhm.
Nashville there. And one of their reporters was, it was like, it had to be shortly after it hit, because he was walking down the middle of the street and there were all these people helping each other rebuild, because he was walking down like one of the business districts, I guess it was what it would be considered. And he was
Mhm.
walking right down the road and all these people were helping each other, like blockade the windows from torn debris that got blown through or anything of that nature. And it was like, oh wow, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, it's been, I mean, just, I mean, I was talking to someone the other day about how, she was trying to apply to volunteer online, and the site had actually crashed because of how many people were trying to apply to help. And so it's just really great to see everyone just trying to do their part and trying to help out as much as they can. So it's been really, on that side, it's been really great to just see that Nashville has stepped up.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long have you been in Nashville?
So I moved here in 2010 to go to Belmont University to study music and music business. And so I've been here for almost 10 years. So
Okay.
it's been a good minute.
Yeah, awesome. And what got you interested in music originally?
So when I was little, my mom's side of the family was really artistic. My mom, loved to write poetry. She played piano, and then my grandfather was an actor, and then we had other family members that played instruments and painted, and so I was really surrounded a lot by the arts. And so as I kind of try to look at all the possibilities between acting and music and everything, music is really what spoke to me, and especially writing. And so I started taking piano lessons and singing lessons and writing. And then I wrote my first song when I was 12 years old, and then kind of, just kept going with it. I've always felt really lucky that I've kind of known from being a child that this is what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely, a big part had to do with the environment that I grew up in, but also the fact that I really love music and I love being able to create and share it with people.
Nice. Do you remember, was there a first song that kind of hooked you? Like, do you remember that first song that you heard?
Oh man. So my mom is a huge Led Zeppelin fan, and I know that her favorite song was "Going to California." And I remember her playing that, and just absolutely just falling in love with the rock world in general. And
Nice.
so, um, that, her showing me all of her music is really what brought me into wanting to do specifically rock in general, because a lot of my family was doing more on the classical, or just kind of in that vein. And so my mom introducing me to that kind of rock genre, because she was a punk rock kid when she was a kid. And so, she talked about how she would go see Led Zeppelin or see the Germs, and all that. So that's kind of what I grew up on. And so, yeah, I mean, going to California was definitely one I remember. And I do remember her telling me that she could definitely tell I wanted to be a musician when I was about, I think, 2 or 3, where I stood on a table and just started singing. Just, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but she said I could definitely tell you were going to do something with music after that. So
That's awesome. Uh, and so like we we kind of go through a little bit of a process here to learn about your creative process. So what is your creative process when you sit down to write music?
usually I normally the way it kind of works is that I pick up a guitar or pick up the piano, and I just kind of just start playing around and just trying to just play melodies, or even if I'm just, playing, just some cover songs or whatnot, I'll just like kind of try and get myself in the mindset of just, playing. And then, afterwards, if there's a melody that comes to mind, then, I'll start kind of playing around with that. And then lyrics usually come right afterwards. And so if I start with the music, that's how I work. But if I start with the lyrics, usually the way that I kind of go about it is I'll just start writing, not with like a specific goal in mind, just to try and get, my brain going. And then usually after writing probably like 2 pages of, of nonsense, I'll start finding, certain words or certain phrases that kind of speak to me. And then I just kind of build from there. And then we'll just record it on my phone just to have some kind of copy of it. And then, do that. Or recently I've been writing a little bit with my lead guitarist, Zach. And, that's been a cool process too. And when I was growing up, there was my friend Loic that I also wrote a song with, and that kind of introduced me on that side. And so it kind of depends on whether I'm picking up the guitar first, the piano first, or whether I'm writing first and then trying to put music to it.
Nice. And how does because it's not just you, it's a band that performs live, correct?
Yeah, so it's a full band. I was incredibly lucky to have these guys pop on board because I wrote the music and then recorded it in Los Angeles at a studio called 11 AD with my incredible producer, Alan Johannes. And they listened to the album and they loved it. And I was incredibly grateful that they loved it and, learned the material and kind of jumped on board with me. And I've just, I feel really, really incredibly lucky that I have people that believe in what I'm doing.
That's always good to have a nice core of people that believe in you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously you always have that moment or like, what if people don't like what I made? And, you just kind of go through the motions, but, it's just, I've just been just been so lucky to be able to even perform it and share it with people and, meet other artists and, try and just share with each other, the music that we're trying to create. And, and that's really what I love about this whole process. I love sharing my music, but I also love, meeting other artists and hearing what they have to say and what, they're trying to accomplish and, and try and just build a community and help each other out.
Yep, absolutely. How do you and your band members push each other creatively?
Well, there are different ways. I know that for me, I try and make sure that my bandmates tell me, if there's anything that they think I can improve on or I can do better on. They always joke around about when we're in practice about how they're saying, oh, well, you need to turn your volume up because I'm always like, I'm pretty sure I turned my volume up last time, but, they're trying to make sure that I'm not trying to hide behind the scenes because, even though it's my music, sometimes I'll have moments where I kind of,
just kind of fall
like
back a little bit.
Huh?
You just kind of fall back a little bit and let everybody else take the.
Well, it's not so much like, them taking the reins as so much, it's just I'll kind of get lost in, just playing the music and, I just sometimes I'm not, when I was growing up, I was not really much one to have like the spotlight shine on me. I always kind of, try to help other people and try to, just share my songs, but not like, I wasn't one to just like run to the spotlight and just, try to get the attention for myself. And so my bandmates will try and kind of like push me and be like, it's okay to be in the spotlight and to, share and just, be proud and do that. So they definitely push me in that way, and when it comes to my other bandmates, I think we just kind of keep each other in check, when we're in practices, and make sure that everyone's kind of on top of the songs. And, we also make sure that we check up on each other each time, just to make sure everyone's okay. And, that's, we also try and push if someone else has an idea musically, we try and look into it, and so we try and, push ourselves to be better musically, but we also try and make sure that we're there for each other and that everyone's in a good mental spot. So
Yeah, mental health is very important, and
yeah.
it gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely I've struggled with a little bit, and, I know that there's so many people that do struggle with it. And, I do think it's important to make sure to check up on each other and make sure everything's okay. Because if there's, a moment where someone's just not feeling it, you don't want to push them, or be that person that, you know, overwhelms them. And so it's just, I always want to make sure that they're, in a good mental spot to be able to create music and be in a positive atmosphere.
Hmm. And I think it's also important that you guys have that open line of communication, and that everybody knows that, hey, I just got some bad news. I need a minute, that you guys are willing to talk to each other and kind of let each other know that you're there for each other.
Yeah,
And
no, I mean, I know it's what I'd want someone to do for me. And, I kind of try and live by the philosophy of, it's however would want to be treated and respected. I usually try and apply that to other people. And so, you know, I, I try to have high standards in that department, because I just, if I'm going to have people on board with the music with the music I'm trying to create, the least I can do is try and make sure that, they're doing okay.
yeah, exactly. And especially with musicians, just from kind of an outsider looking in, because I don't play music. I
Mhm.
probably couldn't carry a tune if I wanted to. Um, but just seeing how emotionally open they make themselves on a nightly basis, and then if for whatever reason they go out there and then that specific song hits them especially hard that night, and then they
Yeah.
come off stage and don't have anybody to talk to about it, that's how bad things start to roll downhill, because they uh they don't have anybody to talk to, and they're trying to make themselves feel better, so they turn to substances, and then that's a whole thing in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone at the end of the day struggles with their own personal, demons. And, I think it's, that's why I try to establish a clear line of communication, just because, I don't want, someone to feel they can't just, come up to me and just tell me, like, or even even if it's just as simple as, look, I'm not feeling it. I'm not in a good spot. There's not even a reason. I'm just not feeling it. And
Hmm.
that's fine. It's just, I just want, as long as you're honest and then there's established line of communication, you don't even have to tell me what exactly the specifics are. Because I know with some of my friends, sometimes they'll just be like, look, I just don't want to talk about it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not good. And it's like, okay, I'll give you your space. And so, I mean, and when you're talking about, performing songs on stage, I definitely can relate to that. One of my songs that I wrote for the album is actually about my father, who passed away in 2011. And so every time I perform that song, I kind of, sometimes I feel like I kind of mentally prepare myself for playing it,
Hmm.
just because I'm like, okay, I can't, you know, can't have like a full mental breakdown while playing this song. And so, I kind of catch myself trying to just take a deep breath and then play it. But I definitely, when it comes to that song, that's really the one that I can definitely relate to the most, for
Yeah.
after, stepping up on stage and being like, man, yeah, that's definitely a memory that's a hard one. So I definitely can relate to that.
Yep, understood completely. Um, what or how long ago was it that you came from Paris, or how long did you stay in Paris?
So I was born there in 1993, and I went to school there and moved to Nashville in 2010 to go to Belmont University.
Okay.
I
Okay,
to
so you moved straight from Paris to Nashville. And
Yeah, I
okay.
moved straight from there, and the only other times I would come to the States would be to visit family in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes for Christmas or, sometimes during the summer. And I got older, I went to a couple music camps at Berklee College of Music, and then went to Pepperdine University to do this film camp. And so, I had come to the States before,
Mm-hmm.
but this is definitely the longest that I've stayed in the States.
Nice.
The longest before that was 3 months.
Okay. Well,
So this is definitely the longest period of time I've stayed in the States for sure.
nice. And what, because you were playing music when you were still living in Paris, how are the music scenes different between Paris and, we'll just say, Nashville? In
Okay. Well, I mean, I definitely think that one way that they are similar is that, I don't think rock is the like most popular genre of music. I think they're both similar in that way. There's definitely is a scene, and there's definitely people that play rock, but I don't think it's like the number one music genre that comes out, or that people are looking for. I know that definitely in France, when it comes to rock, if it's like more popular, most of the time it'll be more on the poppy rock kind of
Mm-hmm.
side of things,
Yeah.
and in Nashville, I've definitely found a group of people that are in the rock scene, and you have your Murfreesboro crowd with the punk rock scene. And so I do think they're similar in that way, in the sense that there is a scene, but I think it's still, I know at least Nashville is still growing and trying to build a bigger community. And there is like a big community already, but I think it's, we're
Growing.
still getting there.
Yep.
I think like if the general population doesn't think of Nashville as like the, a rock and roll city, right now. But, I hopefully can get to that point. But I mean, I know that they kind of remind me of each other in that way. Um, but, I was really lucky in when I grew up there that I met people that were in that rock industry. And, like I spoke about my friend Loic, he has a band called Loading Data, and they're kind of like this desert rock grunge band. And so, I kind of, because of him, I was able to meet, people in the rock community, and it was like the underground scene, you know.
Nice. Yeah.
And so, they're definitely similar in that way. I think for difference, I do think that it was a lot easier to find people musically. And I mean, I guess it makes sense because Nashville is just literally just a booming city of just musicians. And so, it's really easy to find people. I think in Paris you can find them, but I think it's not as, like I said, especially for the rock community, it was a little harder for me to find people there. And I definitely think that, um, I think they're both, incredible communities when it comes to the music industry for sure. And I definitely think that, and especially hearing from my friends in Paris being in the rock industry, I think it's one of those things that, they work hard to be able to get to where they're at, but it's definitely worth it.
Yep. Exactly. But what's kind of interesting about rock music today is you were mentioning that that like specifically in Nashville and in Paris that it's not like very prominent, but I have noticed that like traditional rock music is becoming a little bit more prominent because it's able to stand out from everything else,
Yeah.
because every music scene you go to, they have their death metal bands.
Yeah.
Like, it's like death metal bands are everywhere, or you have the country singers, or you have the solo acoustic singers,
Hmm.
and then you have this one lone rock band, and if they're any good, they're going to stand out
Yeah, for
because
sure.
they're not blowing everybody's brains out with loud percussion and heavy shred, just like heavy metal music, then they're just kind of over there doing their rock thing. I mean, I've seen a couple of different scenes where uh this one rock or where a single rock band would start scooping up all the like bigger gigs because they're so different than anything else. And I'm sure that's a pretty consistent theme as well across the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I mean, like I've said before with my friend back at home, he definitely was able to do that, at least for, in France. And, he built a community in South America too, just because in France, it wasn't as, since, desert rock, stoner rock
Yep.
wasn't, like the number one thing, he definitely was able to scoop a huge part of the community to be on board with him, because they're like, oh man, this is different. Like, we
Yep.
don't have this as much over here. And so I definitely agree with that, and I definitely can see that here too, with certain aspects where you'll see, you'll see this rock band that pops out and you're like, man, like, I know that they only have, a couple fans right now, but I can definitely tell you that's going to change in a couple months for sure. I mean, you could definitely spot those bands just in the crowd, and you're like, yeah,
Absolutely.
they're definitely gonna make it for sure. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so you have a couple of or you have a album that, did you just release this album or has it been out for a little bit?
so I released it back in December on
Okay.
December 13th. So it's been, I think, yeah, it's been almost 3 months since it's been out. And so
Okay.
just been trying to kind of just promote it and, try and just share it with everyone. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, my main goal is to be able to just share and, meet other people and have them share and
Hmm.
just kind of,
Yep.
kind of just hear everyone out. So,
Gotcha. And it's so it's still fairly new. Like, I mean, 3 months. Yeah, roughly 3 months.
yeah,
One thing I will say, kudos to you for releasing it on vinyl.
thank
Uh,
you.
I, it's an expensive thing to do, but
Yeah.
I think that's something that we're going to start seeing more of. So I think you're ahead of the curve on that one. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to be able to do vinyl, and one of the things that was, speaking of, flashbacks and kind of seeing things. I know in Nashville they've been bringing back cassettes
yep.
too, and so it's crazy to just kind of see that. And I remember, just growing up as a kid, just having my cassette player and thinking, oh man, these are coming back.
Yep.
And so, I definitely want to, I definitely want it at least released in a vinyl, and
Yep.
we kind of made the decision to release it as a colored vinyl too, and
Oh,
so
nice.
very proud about
Yeah.
that. It was my favorite color, purple, so
Oh, wow.
that worked
Nice.
out.
Now, I mean, I definitely think there are people out there that are strictly listening to music on vinyl, but I think ultimately vinyl is just going to be one of those things that becomes like collector's items.
Hmm.
So, like, I don't know why I've come to that conclusion, but I'm really old school in the fact that I like to have something tangible. Like
Hmm.
when I pay money to buy something, I want something tangible in return.
Hmm.
And the vinyl gives me that, but I'd also like to listen to my music through my phone or whatever. So, I definitely think the vinyl is a good idea because I do have a record player. I do listen through vinyl,
Hmm.
but I think it's going to become more of a collector's item aspect of the music industry, which isn't a bad thing. Like they're still paying for it.
Yeah.
But that that's just why I'm kind of getting back on the vinyl train because I see it more as a collector's item and a sign of, hey, this band is serious because they're willing to put all this money into producing vinyl records because vinyl still isn't cheap to produce.
Yeah, it's
And
CDs are definitely cheaper on
yeah,
that aspect. Yeah, I feel you
but
there.
it's funny that you said, because I hadn't heard that about Nashville, that people are starting to bring back cassettes.
Hmm.
And about, when was this? About 3.5 years ago. We had just started doing live and amplified. I
Hmm.
was at the show in Roswell, New Mexico. I lived in New Mexico for about 4 years.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And there was this band that came to a local coffee shop, and it was a group of girls. They were one band, but then if you talk to each of them individually, they were like their own separate act. Like, so some of them were solo acts, and then
Hmm.
some of them they had like a three-piece. So it was an interesting dynamic. So basically they'd set up this whole show just using their original five-piece lineup.
Right.
And I was talking to one of them, and I really wanted to support her music because I thought it was really good. Like, out of the five, this one girl was really good. And I was like, "Hey, what do you have music wise? I want to buy either album, buy like whatever you got." And she's like, "Oh, I've got I've got the normal CDs. I've even got vinyl, but the new thing that we're doing is the cassette." And I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" You like I mean, at least vinyl has its own like sound, but
Hmm.
cassette to me, that's just more nostalgic than anything. Because I remember back in the day, sitting in my bedroom making the mixtapes and all that stuff. Like, but other than that, it just doesn't connect to me in that way. But if people
Hmm.
are bringing it back, it's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a nostalgia factor for sure for the cassettes because, especially, I mean, I remember, like I said, having my cassette player, for, just and bringing it with me with just like the big, like clunk cassette player, and so, I mean, I definitely think it's a nostalgia thing. And, I mean, I know that a lot of people, in Nashville, and I even seen some artists in Atlanta, bring that back. And when it comes to the vinyl, I definitely agree that I think it is going to end up becoming more of a collector's item because I mean, I even remember when I was growing up and my mom was showing me her vinyls and
Mhm.
certain things where I was like, man, I don't think you can even still find this. And, it just kind of feels like it's like a collection and it's just, there's certain vinyls where, I was just thinking, I think it would take a lot of
Yeah,
research and a lot of time to find this. And I think at the time when she was buying them, she wasn't thinking about that. She was just buying it because
she liked the
she
band.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. She liked the band and she loved, and she wanted to have it. She wanted to support it, but I don't think she thought that later on people would be freaking out and be like, "Oh man, you have that record? Like
yeah,
that's the one? I've
yeah,
been trying to find that for forever." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I bought it when I was a teenager."
yeah,
Just like they freak out. So
yeah.
I definitely agree with that.
No, it's funny you brought that up because I was having a conversation with my mom within the last year or so, and I was telling her about all the how much vinyl was going for, and just like even not even like original pressings, like reprints
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And she's like, "Dang, now I feel bad because." You remember she had pointed out this garage sale that we had had back like 20 years ago, and for
Yeah.
whatever reason I remember it. And she was like, "Yeah, about 20 years ago, this guy came into this garage sale we were having and asked if we had any vinyl that he wanted to buy it, and I sold my entire collection for $80." And I'm
Oh
like,
man.
she had like the her 35s didn't have any sleeves. It was just like on this little spindle thing.
Yeah.
But the or no 45s, and then the 35s were in sleeves. And she was telling me what she had, and I was just sitting there as she was listing off this long list of like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, just like all these bands with all these like classic albums. And as
Uh-huh.
she starts listing all this stuff off, I'm banging my head against the wall. I'm like, there goes $400. There goes,
Yeah.
you know, because like
I mean,
original,
yeah, I mean, some of those records like go for like a couple hundred, and I mean, I just even going on certain places like eBay or certain people will like sell vinyls. I mean, I've seen some people try and sell some vinyls for like $1,000 just because of how. So I mean, I could probably, I mean, I could just picture it in my mind, just thinking, like, you hearing that, and like, oh man, like,
Yep,
like that's crazy.
pretty much. And then, like, actually, what got me back into vinyl, or well, I mean, just seeing all the independent acts starting to produce vinyl, I was like, you know what? Let me look into it and see what I can like just start digging up because I had a record player as a kid, but it barely worked because it was already 30 years old in the early 90s.
Hmm.
Um, and so I had experimented with vinyl a little bit when I was younger, and then about 2 years ago, I went on eBay and I just typed in vinyl, and there was all these people that were selling just like lots of 45. So you could pay for like $10. You just get this lot like of 25 or 30 45s,
Hmm.
and they'd email or mail it to you. And I found some really good stuff for $10, and like some Al Green,
Man.
like Prince, you know, just like some of the most obscure random stuff. Now, a lot of it was like trash. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I was definitely gambling. Like, I got
Yeah.
some real trash in there, but you know, and some of the albums were scratched. You know, it is what it is. But you know, just some of the gems that I was able to pull out of there, it was like, oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to that, you're always, taking a gamble when it's like a, hey, pay this amount of money for, this, but like we're not going to tell you the specifics. And
Yep.
so, I definitely think, but I mean, I do love that because, it's, I don't think I mean, you wouldn't have found those gems if you hadn't, gone in and been like, all right, here you go, $10, let's see what I can get, and
Yep.
especially, you talk about that Prince album and all that where I'm thinking, man, I've definitely seen Prince vinyls like sell for like 35, $40,
Yep.
just even, or even like walking through certain bookstores and seeing them sell like for between like 35 and sometimes like $100 per
Yep.
vinyl. It's crazy.
Yep. But what I have found recently, if you go to like a thrift store or not or like an antique shop,
Hmm.
if it's a really hip one, they'll have vinyl there. And if the guy doesn't know what he has, sometimes you can find a real steal.
Yeah.
Uh, like the what am I looking? Oh, when I went when I was living in Florida last year, and my friends and I went to this store, and we found this is really random, a DMX Radio Advance album.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I know who DMX is. I'm not like I'd like maybe one or two of his songs, but the fact that this is a radio advance, you know, that's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think there's definitely those little, I mean, I've definitely have found, just Nashville does have a lot of, record shops and, just sometimes you'll just find just like the craziest stuff, just even just hidden in the back or, maybe in the pile where it's like, oh, 99 cents each, but then you find something that you're like, oh man, like this, I can't believe this is, this is like here,
Yep,
and so you definitely find some crazy stuff for sure.
yep, absolutely. Um, but let's focus back in on your album. It's called Sharp Words, correct?
Yeah, sharp words.
And what was kind of the process when you were getting ready to put that album together? Did you write specifically for it, or did you have a bunch of songs that you just kind of pulled from?
So basically, I just at the time, I was in a band, and that didn't end up working out, and so I was kind of starting to just write more songs, and I I was trying to think of, what was going to be the next step, what am I going to do? Do I, because I always really wanted to be like in a band,
Mm, yeah,
and so I was like, maybe it's the band thing not working. Do I need to, go do my own stuff and like maybe find people, and so I was trying to figure out that process, and then I got incredibly lucky to be able to get in contact with my producer, Alan. And, he was saying, like, just send me, what you have, songs that you've recorded before, and, songs that you've written. And so I sent him, I think, about 20 different songs that I had written and, just recorded in my little home studio. And um, afterwards just kind of talked about, like, okay, what songs do you think, you'd want to put in an album? And, like I said, I got incredibly lucky because he had an opening to be able to have me record the album. And so we picked 8 songs at the time. And then I flew out to Los Angeles, and we kind of looked over the songs, and it was mostly just the two of us recording. I was doing the vocals and rhythm guitars, and he was doing lead guitars, and just so many different instruments. I mean, he's really, one of his instruments that he loves to play is cigar box. And, he played so many instruments. And then we had this guy, Dill Williams, come on to play drums. And so it was a 2 to 3 man operation to record that. And we recorded for 9 days. And then one thing that I really enjoyed watching him do was, just while we were recording, he was, mixing and recording, at this, like, he was like the whole process went so incredibly quickly. And it's just, I think also too, just working in that kind of atmosphere, because the studio he has was just so it was just surrounded by instruments, and just it definitely one of those places that when the minute you walk in, you're like, okay, there's been definitely some music and just creative outlets, and just it's just that kind of place, where you just that there's gonna be things happening. And originally we were only going to record 8, and they're just like, well, could probably record a 9th one. And so I played another song that I had written recently, that was playing on one of his acoustics, and he was like, well, let's add that, and then, like, that could be a full, length album. And so ended up recording that one, which the 9th one ended up being called Mesmer, and was the last one on the album. And it was funny because it kind of felt at the time that there wasn't a song that was like a good closer to the album, if that makes any sense. And it kind of felt like destiny in a way that one happened to show up at the time that it did, and to kind of put it as the last song on the album. But
yeah. No, that's wonderful. When you guys were recording, did you guys try and do it more live, or did you track each instrument individually? What was kind of that process?
So, like I said, for the majority of it, it was a 2-man operation. It was Alan and I, and basically the whole process of it was that, the first day, we met together and, just kind of sat down, talked about, the songs and, what I wanted to accomplish with it, and then we talked about what, the next 9 to 10 days are going to be like. And then the next day I remember the first song we recorded was this song called N, which is the only French one I have on the album. And basically the way we kind of did it was that we laid down the acoustic guitar, or, for other songs, electric guitar. And then afterwards we put, scratch vocals on it, just with like a live microphone in his studio. And then so to just kind of have like a bass for the song. And then afterwards, Alan, he would add some bass, or he had electric guitar. Sometimes would add some EBO to the electric guitar. And then for other songs, he'd add cigar box. And then Dill, the drummer, actually came in later. And some of the guitars that he recorded on were either the ones that we're going to keep, or, just the just kind of like a bass track for him to be able to play to. But there was one song that we actually um, played together, the Mr. Terra one, which was the only one we actually didn't play to a click.
Mm-hmm.
And we were originally going to, but then there was like different time signatures in it. And I remember Dill just being like, why don't we just play it live and
Yeah.
just, to see what happens. And so it was just me with an electric guitar and a microphone and then him with the drums. And so we recorded it live. And, I do remember having an incredible time doing that. And it just, it kind of, it definitely put me in that mindset of like, oh man, I can't wait to play these songs live, And so and that was the only one that was like a live-ish, I guess, because it didn't have
Yeah.
all the instruments. But after that, I did like add on electric guitars, just to kind of add layers. And so I mean, that was kind of the idea. We kind of just, that's why, it was about a 9 to 10 day process, because, mostly it was just Alan and I just adding stuff for me, being, electric rhythm guitar and vocals. And then, Alan would add bass and, just layer upon layer. I mean, there were like bell sounds too that we'd add. One technique he taught me was, he was saying like, if ever you want to have some kind of like string orchestra type of sound, but don't have the budget to do one because it is pretty expensive, is that,
Yep.
you kind of you can buy those brushes and I think it was just like a gas station, just kind of like a bristle brush or whatever, and you kind of just play really fast on the guitar itself while you're just making chord shapes with your left hand. And it's crazy because it actually makes it sound like multiple, just like violins or string quartets, just like playing incredibly fast. And that's what we did with the song N, the French one, is when you start listening at the beginning of the song and you hear like just kind of, it sounds like just far away in the distance violins just playing. And it's really, I don't know how he figured it out, but I mean, at the same time, he is that kind of person where he just, I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said that his studio had so many different instruments from so many different places. And he's definitely one of those guys that I have an incredible amount of respect for. And I mean, he's one of those guys that he's like, oh, okay, you want a trumpet on there? All right, let me just pick it up. And then he'll within 10 minutes will just
Have it figured out.
yeah, he'll figure it out. I mean, all the instruments he has in his studio or had in his studio, like he could play to a certain extent. I mean, he's just that kind of person. He's just that musically incredible. And so, I mean, that's why I feel so incredibly lucky that I got to be able to work with him, because he helped me through a tough time where I wasn't really sure what direction I was going musically. And, he definitely was my guide through that and helped me kind of get out of that confusion. And like, the dust kind of like settled, and just, I was just, like I said, just so lucky that I had him by my side to help me out and create this album.
Nice. Are you working towards another album now, or are you just kind of playing out and promoting the one that you currently have?
So right now I'm currently, just trying to promote this one. It's one that I worked, a long time on, and I do want to give it, the amount of attention that I think that it needs to have, and try and promote it as much as I can. I do still write,
Yeah.
as that's like a constant process of me just like, I'll just pick up a guitar and just write songs, so whenever the time comes to start recording a new album, I definitely have my set of songs that I kind of have an idea as to what I'm gonna put on next. And I do know, at least for, if ever, whenever I do record the next album, that there's one song that I wrote, the first song that I wrote with my friend Loic, back when I was 12 or 13. I know that definitely is going to be on the new album, because we always play it live, even and everyone always loves it, and they definitely, I have had people tell me like you should definitely put that on an album, and so I know that that one for sure at least will be on the next album.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's um we've been talking a lot about what you're currently working on and what you see or what you've done in the past. What do you see for yourself in the future? Where do you ultimately want to take your music?
So the goal is, I have been playing around in Nashville and booking gigs in Nashville and Murfreesboro, and the goal is to kind of try and just do like mini tours here and there. And I'm actually flying out to Los Angeles in April to play a gig in Los Angeles. So
Oh wow.
trying to get we're going to Palm Springs area,
Oh
so
nice.
to the desert. So definitely love that area. I mean, the album cover itself is in the desert, so I mean that's pretty much my element there. And so going out there, and then have been receiving messages about people asking about whether I'm trying to plan some shows or gigs in Europe, and I definitely want to plan some, at least in France and in the UK, because one, France, because I'm originally from there and I do have a
Mm.
French song, and I do want to, go do that. And then the UK, because I've had some people ask, and, so that kind of started, I've kind of been working on whether, I'm going to be touring in Europe either by the end of this year or next year. It's obviously it takes a minute to plan those things out, but the goal is to definitely have it at least by the end of this year or next year, to go out there for maybe like a week or two and just kind of travel around Europe and promote the album.
Awesome. That's really cool. I've seen a lot of or been and since I've started paying attention more closely to the independent music scene in general, there's a huge market for doing European tours. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I definitely seeing it from growing up over there. It's, I do think that sometimes it can be sometimes in certain aspects it can be a harder market to break into sometimes, just because I do know that fans over there, once they're committed to a band, like it's a lifetime. It's like a
Yeah.
lifetime, like we're supporting you till you die type of
Yep.
situation. They're pretty, they are very, very supportive in that way. So I know that once you're able to get through to people over there, it's definitely, I always tell people, like, if you can get people in Europe to like to get behind you, like
Yeah.
you're very lucky, because
Yeah.
they're very supportive over there.
Yeah. It's because I was having this conversation with somebody a while back about the interesting cross section of music, because you got people over in Europe that see it as, oh, if you can make it over in America, you've made it. And then you've got people in America that go over to Europe and they say, oh, if you can make it in Europe, you've made it. And so it's
Yeah,
just kind of like this interesting thing. And I see it from both sides because, you know, Americans, they'll go over to Europe and it's, oh, well, this is where the Beatles came from. This is where the Who came from. This is where they came, just all, and
yeah.
they rattle off all these bands. And then people from the UK or Europe in general, they do the exact same thing. So it's just kind of like, I guess it's that old adage, the grass always seems greener on the other side.
Yeah, pretty. I mean, I think definitely from seeing it from both perspectives, from like living, because I remember when I was growing up in Europe, in France, I remember talking to my friends, being like, "Man, I can't wait to go to the States and try and promote certain try and like, because like there's more opportunity, I think, for the rock scene over there." And then after living here for 10 years, I'm like, I am grateful that I moved here, and there's definitely opportunity here. And but I definitely see it from the other perspective too, because I now that I'm thinking about doing touring in Europe, it definitely is like, yeah, I definitely see where the opportunity is there. And so I definitely think you're right with the grass is always greener on the other side, because I think you have to be on literally on the other side to kind of realize like, oh
Yep.
yeah, so these are the good things on this side and these are the good things on that one. And so I do think they both have a lot to offer just in different ways. And so I think it's just kind of looking into it and seeing like what exactly from the States or from Europe, is going to be helpful to you.
Yep, exactly. And was moving to America something that you always knew you were going to do, or?
I think that I think I definitely knew that I was going to move to the States at some point, when I was growing up, just because, I was trying to do rock music. And like I said, my friend who's in a band over there, he got lucky because, his genre of music was like such like a specific, like
Yep.
specific like type of genre in the rock scene, and kind of like in the vein of like Queens of the Stone Age, kind of like that Joshua Tree area, which you wouldn't get a lot of in France. And so, that's kind of like what I grew up with. But I did see, through the eyes of my friends who were in the music industry, like, certain struggles and certain things where, they talk about like, they do want to move to the States at some point. And so, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, I know that if I end up going to college in the States, that'll be my opportunity to kind of check it out and see, if this will be the place for me, or, if I'd want to go back to Europe, and I think I've kind of come to the conclusion that if I could get to the point where I can try and do 50-50, that
Hmm.
would be great. I know it's like so much money, but it's,
Yeah.
that's kind of the goal, I think, at the end of the day. But I think at the time, though, I thought I was going to move to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about Nashville until I came to visit Nashville and back in 2008. And I think, just the city kind of drew me in. And
Hmm.
so that's why I decided to come here and live here. And so, now I'm kind of working on trying to, jump around between like, Nashville and LA and Europe, and,
Yep.
just try and like kind of live that lifestyle that I guess like every musician kind of wants to live.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably a good thing you didn't go to LA, because that's just a tough city to be in. It'll chew you up and spit you out if you're not ready for it. But
Yeah.
I also think Nashville can be like that if you get caught up in everything that Nashville has to offer. But
Hmm.
I think Nashville, to contradict myself a little bit, I think also Nashville has that nice base of people that are actually from Nashville, and they have a nice community base that's there to help and support you. Whereas I don't think LA has that.
Well, I think, you know, I will say this about LA. I mean, especially with, my producer and, some of his group of friends and, that kind of community. I think I think there is that group of people. I think it just happens to be harder to find over there,
Oh,
because I think it's just since LA has like had more time to have that like those layers just build up. I feel
hmm,
that you have those original people that have lived there that just kind of like gone in retreat, just like how some people that originally are from Nashville have decided to move literally out of Nashville and go more on like the outer parts, and so I think with Nashville, I think there is that. I do think with LA there is that. I just think that maybe in LA, like sometimes it can be really. I think it's definitely harder to find your people and find the community or like the original like OGs, I guess, of there.
yeah,
Where, just where it's just there's not all the drama and everything. But I definitely do think that if you look hard enough and you'll be able to find. I mean, and I got lucky to find that. I think, and it probably had to do with the fact that, my mom grew up in Los Angeles and was born and raised there. And so she already, she had built her base, so even when she moved to France and lived there for 25 years, she still had, her home base in Los
Mm.
Angeles, and she's over there. So I mean, it's cool to see Los Angeles from her perspective, from being born over there and raised, and just I mean, I do love both communities a lot, and I think they both have a lot to offer. But I definitely do agree and see what you mean with the whole Nashville thing, because I think that's why I moved here, because at the time I was able to meet those original like Nashvilleian people a lot easier than when I would go out to LA.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what I was getting at. So you hit it on the head there. Um, what what's we're gonna start kind of wrapping everything up just because I don't want to keep you all day. I know you got a show coming up this afternoon it's for specifically for the tornado victims, correct? Or
Yeah,
people
so
affected.
it's at the Borough Bar and Grill, and it's to raise money to help those guys out, and they're also taking goods in, so like any canned foods or just anything like that. So I mean, if you can make it out, just just make to even just support
Mm-hmm.
or the national community or anything. That's really what's important at the end of the day at this point, to make sure that everyone kind of gets the resources that they can get to be able to help the people that really need help right now.
Yeah, very true. And then you kind of mentioned what's the rest of your month and moving forward show wise looking like?
So let's see. So I have the show this afternoon, and then I have a show on the 26th at a media rerun in Murfreesboro. Then on the 28th, there's a 100 songs, 100 artists show that's going on at Twin Kegs 2. And I also have another podcast that I'm going to be going on. I think it's on March 19th. But I don't think it's going to be released till later. And then like I said, later on in April, I have a show at Palm Springs that's going to be a benefit show to help raise money for shelters.
Oh, awesome. Like homeless shelters or pet shelters?
Pet shelters.
Oh, nice.
It's a company called Diamond Dogs, and they, help in that way. And that's another thing that I'm very passionate about. So my Cocker Spaniel is actually from a shelter from Lancaster, California, in the middle of the desert, out in the middle of nowhere. So it's definitely just something I'm really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that I've been looking into myself. I just can't seem to pull the trigger because I don't want to get a dog and then not be here for it to be able to give
Yeah.
it the because I'm on the road, like just being on the road as much as I am, it's kind of hard. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
want
I think there's that line of like, I want to help out, but I also want to, be able to give the attention and
to. Mm-hmm.
that this dog needs, and I mean, I know I have some friends of mine that, they'll be on the road that, sometimes they'll even just like foster for just 2 days, just to
Yeah.
be like, hey, can you just hold on to this dog for 2 days until this, the person that's going to adopt him can be there to pick him up, and so um, I definitely would love to foster more if I could, but my apartment complex has a limit of 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So I already have that. And so unfortunately, I can't help in that way, but I definitely want to try and help raise some money,
Yep.
at least for that event.
Yep. I will say though, Texas is making it really hard. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep passing on picking up a dog because
Yeah.
especially where I'm at in Central Texas,
Yeah.
strays are a huge issue. So like every couple of weeks we get, because I work for a TV station here in town,
Mm-hmm.
and every couple of weeks we get alerts saying, hey, can you guys help push this promo that we're doing for free pet adoptions because we're at capacity and we just got 36 new dogs in and we're going to have to put some of them to sleep if we don't get them adopted here in the next couple
Yeah.
of days. And it's like, man, I want to help, but I know in the end are they really going to be happier by just sitting in my apartment all day by themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely do agree. I think it's, it's that it's trying to figure out like, okay, what would be, what is the best thing I can do? And I don't think, I don't think there's any shame in like, saying that, I
Mhm.
think that, sometimes some people will be like, well, how could you like, not help out? And it's just like, well, you also have to think about the animal and like, is the animal going to be happy, in the environment that it's going to be in? And can I really be the one helping them,
Yep.
instead of trying to figure out, what is the right thing for the animal in that scenario. So, I definitely, I mean, I applaud you for, be able to recognize that. But, I definitely know the struggle of wanting to help out and be like, man, I really wish I could help out, but I have two dogs
Yep.
and I will definitely get in trouble if I bring more animals in this apartment. So I definitely feel that.
Yep. Exactly. And then where can people find you online to support you, listen to your music for upcoming shows and all that stuff?
So I have a website called aureliamusic.com. I also have a Facebook. You can find me at Aurelia Langford Music. And I also have a Twitter, Aurelia Langford. You can also find me on Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, pretty much any musical outlet you can think of. If you just look up on Spotify, Aurelia Sharp Words, you'll be able to find the album on there.
Awesome. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you once again so much for giving me the time to sit down and chat with you.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you so much for having me. And this has been really incredible. And I mean, what a variety of topics,
yeah,
for sure.
it was interesting how they all came up, but you know what? I'm not afraid to just let the conversation go where it goes, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
But yeah, thank you again so much for giving me your time, and thank you to
Yeah.
everyone for tuning in, and we will see you all later.